coming here to eliminate what they feel is a completely out of focus tradition. And I'm telling you guys something, it's embarrassing what was told to me, but we're going to have to go out there and play football. At 7:30, they're going to know why this thing is called the pit. They are going to know that.
Now listen up to this, because it means a lot right now. It's a prayer for help against unjust enemies.
Hey, grab a hand.
Fight, O Lord, against those who fight me. War against those who make war upon me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those be put to shame and disgraced who seek my life. Let those be turned back and confounded who plot evil against me. Let them be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them on.
Let's get these guys, let's get these guys! They're ours, they're ours! Let's go this thing, let's go! Hey, Paul! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Football, the national obsession, the most popular game in America. Each year, over 1.5 million men and boys give their body and souls to the sport. But the dimensions of football range beyond what we see from the stands or on the television screen. In reality, a win-at-any-cost ethic has swept the playing field. The highly specialized pro game has become a questionable role model for all levels of competition. Violence and serious injury are routinely accepted as part of the game. The injury toll is seldom revealed. What was once a contact game is now a collision sport. Football in America has become a troubled pastime, in danger of falling victim to its own excesses.
Pow! Hit that thing. If you bench press 300, you're bench pressing this thing. All right, you're giving it a 300-pound shot. No love pat. Strike! Strike!
In football today, intimidation, gang tackling, and punishing the opponent are seen as vital to success.
Well, shit, get into him!
Come on, dirty Motsy!
The difference between playing hard and playing to hurt is easily lost.
From the time that you take the field as a football player, the first thing that you're taught is you got to be a great hitter. And coaches, players, fans, and everybody else involved with the game always love a hitter.
This is football as we all know it, reckless and hard-hitting. But the highlights, neatly packaged and set to music, sanitize the action. In fact, great hits often violate both the spirit and the letter of the rules.
Football is a violent sport, and that's pretty much the way I guess it has to be, especially on the college level. The shot that I took to my knee was uncalled for, and it just makes me wonder sometimes why I do play the game. It was a clip to the back of my leg, and it tore my ligaments. Thank God it was nothing else.
The time has come, I think, where we've got to start focusing on the problem and stop making excuses for it. I don't know that you could have it without the violence, per se. You can have it without certainly the excessive violence. However, I don't see us traveling that direction. I think that that's something that we as a society and as athletes are going to have to come to grips with.
Guys who are playing the game want to make an impression on pro scouts. So the only way to make an impression on pro scouts is to be violent, be nasty, and I guess try and hurt the other guy.
When I took the field, I played against a uniform. I never played against people. And I think that was an attitude that I had to have. I think if you think about, you know, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to kill Joe so-and-so, and you get to worrying about one guy, then you're not going to play a very good game.
The reason why I hit most ball carriers with full force is because they are carrying something that I won, which is called a football. And Footballs do not leave people when you just walk up to them and trip their ankles or go up and throw your arms around them. You literally have to hit them with the impact so that they really don't care where that football goes.
Hey, yo, fuck patient! Drop 24 zip, fuck patient! Just go and beat their ass! Come on!
There are a lot of people who, when they put on a football helmet, change personalities and become far more violent than they are without football uniform. But there are a good number of people out there who are willing to do whatever it takes to win. It's a message that we are sending to our children that I don't think is necessarily correct. If there's a rule, you stretch it. If you're not allowed to clip people, you don't clip them, but you come awfully close. You hit them maybe harder than they need to be hit to get the job done.
Coaches, fans expect athletes to be aggressive to the point of being feared in football at virtually every level. Even Little League football coaches coach their athletes to be aggressive. One of the determining factors as to whether or not an individual has high football playing potential is essentially his killer instinct, if you will.
Cunningham, you better drive. You take a dive. Go. You'll face me. Hit him!
That's it, right there. Do your job, man, do your job.
You get the ball, you go right through him. You don't stop for nothing.
Big man now, big man.
If you got to step on his chest, step on it.
Go.
Hit him!
Nail him. Don't wait. Go, go. Cream him.
Drive, Cunningham.
I think the very nature of football lends itself to emotional child abuse. And quite frankly, many of us don't feel that there's an alternate model. Very often the coach feels that's the appropriate way.
Go. Hit him, Hunt. Hit him!
In fact, we have, as kind of a national hero, Vince Lombardi, who seemed to crystallize all of those values. We can't seem to realize that maybe the participating in the sport and getting needs can actually be taught and coached in a very different way. It can. We have just gotten in a rut with the present model that we have.
We're going to straighten up the second half?
Yes, sir!
Huh?
Yes, sir!
You want to win?
Yes, sir!
How bad?
Younger children are not as preoccupied with winning as adults are. The pro model is primarily a model to appease and please adults. Children really see as far more critical playing, getting an opportunity to be a part of the action, improving in their skills, having fun, socializing with others. That doesn't mean that they eliminate winning. They would like to win just as much as anyone else, but they can get other thrills out of the sport.
Well, I'm against all tackling football before a kid's in 9th grade or the first year of high school. I think anything below that is really harmful in a lot of ways.
Go. Get him. That's it. That's it.
When you put him into a situation where strength and physical courage are so important at an early age, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for the young people's health, and I don't think it necessarily means that that's the best way to train them.
Offensively, they're running right over you, okay? You want to play a safety spot? You got to get there. You got to earn it. You got to be aggressive. You were good yesterday, right? You left all that at home today. So let's get it back.
I don't think we have people who are qualified to coach for those youngsters. If they're taking that game and they're listening to what Joe Paterno says about Penn State and then applying that to 9 and 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, that's totally wrong.
Many people that volunteer their time don't have the background and the training. Add to that the physical aspects of football and to some degree the physical dangers of football. And you have people that aren't qualified in how to administrate that part of it, and you have your problems. Hopefully there are enough parents that have the sense to see it and not like it and say something about it. Those people that administrate these leagues of teams should check very carefully about individual teams and how they're being handled. And your body really, I don't think, is ready for the true physical activity of tackle football till 12 and maybe 14 years of age, more likely 14. And there are a lot of skills you can develop that can be related to football outside of the game. I think soccer is a good one. There are a lot of others.
People come to me and they'll say, they've got a kid in the junior high here that's super. I'll even hear about super athletes who are 10. And I'm saying, super athlete at 10, who cares? Let the kid be somebody first.
We goofed off this week, didn't we, guys?
Yes, sir!
Didn't we?
Yes, sir!
You going to practice hard next week?
Yes, sir!
Are you going to win any more games?
Yes, sir!
How many? Come on, let's go, let's go!
When boys reach high school age, their velocity increases and the game becomes more dangerous.
Hey! Sit! Hunt, hunt! Get him out of there, Mike. Go over there.
A two-year study published in 1980 examined the injury rates of 101 Minnesota high schools. The results showed an epidemic rate of 78 injuries per 100 players. The most disturbing finding was the incidence of trauma to the head and neck. Symptoms of cerebral concussion were reported by 19% of the players. Less than half the teams had a physician in attendance at their games, and only 7% had a doctor at practice, where 50% of the injuries occurred. Given the high frequency of injury, playing with pain is not just a virtue, it is a necessity.
Huh?
I'll be able to play, will I?
Yeah, you'll be able to play
this week?
I hope you can.
I'm ready to Friday, though.
I hope you can.
When you're 17 years old, you have a very limited view. And I think it's important that parents impress upon their children that this is just a game, and it's not life, and it's not the end of the world if you can't do it.
It means a lot, you know, because I want to do my best this year, you know, to go to college. I want to play college ball, you know, and so I want to have a good junior year.
I'll tell you what, you don't have any broken ribs, then you can play next game, okay?
I want to win. I feel like I'm letting a lot of guys down. That's about it. Go! Just want to play.
Most careers end at the high school level. Only 1 in 60 players will advance to college football. Once again, the physical dangers increase. But so too does the athlete's dedication to the game.
It's pretty much my life. I mean, I've been playing football ever since I was a youngster, and to me, football means a lot. It's my love.
Just the exhilaration of being out on the field with 50,000 people screaming for you or screaming against you, it's a high. It's an ego trip, you know, there's no doubt about it.
At that time, you feel that, you know, you're in college and that's your time. And then, you know, you're doing something where everybody's watching you. It's a sort of spotlight type of thing. You're in the spotlight, and you want to be there as long as you can.
To go through everything that we go through to play the game, it has to be a great game, or we're just totally insane to be playing it.
In college football, it is virtually impossible to avoid injury. During a recent 5-year study, one major university averaged 120 injuries per 100 players. The overwhelming injury rates have spawned a sophisticated therapy system. Sports medicine rehabilitates athletes faster than ever before. But the emphasis is on short-term results. The lifelong effects of major injury are often not considered.
The fact that I have, you know, 2 8-inch scars on each shoulder is not, you know, real pleasant. It's not something you want to show your grandkids, but I just hope that they stay fixed.
I don't worry about what's going to happen in the future, because if I do the things that are asking me to do to rehabilitate it, I don't think that I will have any problems.
You know, you don't really think about the future, you know, when it's going on, because it's something that's been done, and you can't change it. So it's best to not even think about it in the future.
We don't think of the next 50 years. We're just thinking of the moment when we're young. We think, oh, the future will take care of itself. I'll always be able to go because, hey, I got the recognition, people love me, how can I miss? It doesn't work out that way. When it's over, people forget too.
I have a lot of friends who would gladly, I believe, trade a knee injury which they had while they were playing at the university for the opportunity to play football. It's almost a have-to feeling, because football players in general are very positive thinking people, and if you are to start to think, is it worth it or is it not worth it, you're playing games with your mental attitude, which you have to have a positive attitude in order to go in there day by day and do the things that are necessary to make the team and to be a winner.
Each year, football results in an estimated 30 to 50,000 knee surgeries. Studies show that such injuries almost inevitably carry the threat of degenerative arthritis.
Now, we can do surgery. We can repair ligament tears. We can partially take out torn cartilages. We can sometimes even repair a torn meniscus or cartilage. But we haven't made it normal.
When my football playing days are finished, I'm going to have to eventually deal with the fact that most joint surgeries or joint problems entail arthritis in the later years of your life. But what's going to happen in the future is not as important as my present career. And I think that playing football is more important to me now than the thought of having arthritis later.
These are the x-rays of an individual who 10 years ago it was felt had a relatively minor knee injury. Normal surfaces to the shin bone and to the thigh bone or the femur. What appears to be a normal knee. These are the same patient's x-rays 10 years later, showing the deterioration of the surfaces, spurs on either side, top and bottom, even cysts forming within the bone, indicating the progressive arthritic changes developing within that knee joint.
The frustration is that we allow it to happen, and we as players inflict it upon ourselves. People having 3, 4, 5, 6 knee operations. I think at some point we as a society and we as players have to come to grips with what we're doing to ourselves.
When I was in my prime, it never really occurred to me that I would have to live with these injuries. Now I'm 45 years old, and my knee, I've had 4 operations on my left knee, 1 on my right, but nothing I can do. They happened, and I thought, well, I'll survive it. If other people have survived it, then heck, I can survive it. And as a result, going to be a cripple the rest of my life. And I don't relish the thought of the next 50 years, if I live that long, being a cripple.
Can't possibly be worth a lifetime of crippling injuries, injuries that won't allow you to go out and play with your children, injuries that keep you in pain most of the time. I don't think that there is any way that this game is that valuable.
You don't realize how great it is until you lose it. And I don't think anyone loved to run more than I did. So I would not go through it again. And it was great for me, and it was great to me. But it wasn't worth it. I've paid too high a price. And I'm not getting any return on it now when I need it.
This is the testing laboratory for the National Operating Committee for Safety and Athletic Equipment. Damaged knees are the most common football injury, but head and neck injuries are the most lethal and the least understood. Research has proven that there is very little a modern helmet can do to protect the head, and nothing it can do to protect the neck. A national uproar over deaths and paralyses forced a 1976 rule change, which prohibited initial contact with the helmet in both blocking and tackling.
Try it again. Try it again. Go! Right at him, right at him. You use your head again, okay? Don't use your helmet. We got to use this crook of the neck right here, okay? We got to use that. And get your butt under you and extend. But if you use the top of the head, you're compressing the vertebrae. You're going to hurt yourself. Go!
Coaches are often reluctant to emphasize that the use of the head can result in catastrophic injury. From 1971 to 1981, rough surveys have confirmed at least 122 deaths and 193 permanent paralyses in American football.
Players hitting with the head often get the neck trapped between their body and the opponent. The neck is trapped in flexion and can be much easier to fracture or dislocate in that mode.
But catastrophic injury is only part of a larger medical problem. 31% of the Minnesota high school injuries were to the head and neck. One university reported X-ray evidence of cervical spine injury in nearly half of all seniors. Cervical arthritis is one very likely effect of such abuse.
On a football field, kinetic energy up to 2,000 foot-pounds can easily be generated by a large, fast back. Typically, 1,000 foot-pounds is generated. And we know that under certain conditions, such as coming in with a flexed neck, you can break the neck or dislocate it as low as 200 foot-pounds of energy.
I was laying on the field, and I can't remember if they sandbagged my head. I was told they did. I heard, well, it might be a pinched nerve. I really didn't know. I couldn't feel anything. I was, paralyzed.
When Rob Mudd was 15, a head-first tackle fractured his spine and left him quadriplegic. 10 years later, the pain of that day is still fresh for Rob and his parents.
I don't know if you could call it anger or just...
I'm angry. I'm bitter.
Well, I had to imagine possibly a hurt knee, torn cartilage, maybe a broken limb, but nothing as catastrophic. This, a spinal cord injury, I had no idea. I had never really heard of it. Maybe a concussion even, but a spinal cord injury, no, I didn't know.
Well, he was taught to hit with the head first, and that's what he did. Maybe not on purpose, but that's the way he was taught, and that's what he did.
Somebody in his young teens just doesn't have the experience. They don't really know what the consequences can be. When you're younger, you think you're immortal.
We certainly weren't told how they were going to coach.
No.
When I think of the brutality.
Bat him on the wrist. Bat him on the wrist. Bat him, bat him, bat him, bat him. All right, that away. Here we go. Bat him.
In 1980, the rule changes were expanded to prohibit the use of the head by ball carriers. But football has proven resistant to change. The helmet is still used as a weapon.
Go. There you go. There you go.
Down. Going, coach.
Theoretically, the rules should have solved a problem. But I think you would be hard-pressed to find a game where there isn't blocking and tackling using the head as the primary striking object. And the only question that you can raise then is, why is this still going on if it's illegal?
If you hit him high and he bends back, then you lose your momentum, don't you? See? That's why you want your headgear right here in the sternum and then coming on up. Here we go.
Do it again, Jim. Let's go, guys. Come on, come on, come on. There. Come on, man, come on. All right. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. That's good. Go get water.
Football's inability to adequately govern the use of the helmet has moved the controversy into the courts. Since 1980, paralyzed athletes have received over $20 million in damages from equipment manufacturers, school districts, and coaches. The specter of future liability threatens the very existence of the game. To counter the rash of lawsuits, helmet makers have placed warnings inside the headgear. But wording and obscure location have made these labels virtually ineffective. The warnings provide little more than legal protection for manufacturers. Studies show that only 1 in 70 high school players is aware of the chilling message pasted in every helmet.
The warning label in a typical football helmet reads like this. Do not use this helmet to butt, ram, or spear an opposing player. This is in violation of the football rules, and such use can result in severe head or neck injury, paralysis, or death to you, and possible injury to your opponent. No helmet can prevent all head or neck injuries a player might receive while participating in football.
When they were forced by litigation to place labels in the helmet telling somewhat the limitations of the helmet, they made them as small as possible, hid them inside the helmet, and then used language to obscure the potential for injury. The warning label should be put in a large label conforming to the proper signal word, the proper color combination, and put on the exterior of the helmet. so as to exhort the people with the intensity to require to prevent injury.
R&R. Relax and play reckless, we'll have a good defense. Hey, but if you get tight, you can't play. All right, see if old Mims is loafing, we'll blow him plumb out of the stadium. All right, here we go, this one right here. Go hard,
As football moves into the 1980s, a fundamental question stands to be answered. Will football be dramatically revised to maximize the physical well-being of its participants? Or will it continue to accept widespread and lifelong injury as part of the game?
Well, it certainly changes your life. You know, when you're really young, you're a teenager, you know, and there's a long way to go in life. Some of the coaches maybe should think about the players' welfare in the future. Like, a coach will always have players, it seems like, unless the game is abolished. You know, there's always going to be the next year's draft or next year's class. Maybe they should think about what's happening to this year's class or maybe last year's class.
I wouldn't do it all again. No, I wouldn't do it all again. I'd rather get that recognition and glory by being a 85-year-old man, first 85-year-old man that could dunk a basketball because he had 2 good legs.
Blue! 89! Sit!